I worked every single day of the year for probably over a decade. It was live and breathe YouTube.
How do you push the needle forward? You compare yourself to other people in your space.
Yeah, when I was in my work mode, like fully work mode, everything was a comparison and it gets a little bit tiring. Even when I was making $50,000, I was spending all the money that I was making. I spent $20,000 on shoes one year.
Looking back at your own journey, would you say, yes, I would 100% do that all over again?
Absolutely.
What's up, everyone? Edward here, again, without Paul. This is another episode. You know how it is. Paul lives in Florida. I live in Seattle. But I have an awesome guest that's in town, and I just could not resist having him on the pod. We have Justin Say?
Yep.
Okay, Justin Say.
You nailed it.
Okay, Justin Say, he is a YouTuber and CEO of Feature Media. Honestly, this man is just an entrepreneur, like digital entrepreneur. He's done so much, accomplished so much, and we were working on a project here together. He needed some help. We shot like a Lamborghini today, and he needed some content of that, so we shot that. But what better time to have him on the podcast than when he's in Seattle, like in my backyard. So let's roll intro music and get right into this conversation. Now we're on the mic. Now we're all set up. Cams are rolling. We just took the last hour setting up, and I'm honestly tired. How you feeling, Justin?
It's been a long day. I mean, I'm only here for about 24 hours, so it's nice to be back to Seattle. It's been probably over a decade. I've flown through it, so close to where I live. I know we've been talking about meeting up, but yeah, it feels like we've known each other for a while, have a lot of similarities. We like the same style, but yeah, it's nice to finally meet today. And I feel like from the second we met, it was felt like just we're like catching up or something.
I know, it did kind of feel like that. I feel like it's weird when you meet friends that you've made online and you meet them in real life, and it just feels so natural, like you've known them for a while. That's how I feel about you when I first met you. So super stoked to have you here. Thank you for coming onto the podcast. We're quite literally rallying, y'all. Like me and Justin, we're kind of tired, but we're here doing this because Justin, you got some stories, bro. You got stories. You're building an empire out here. Anyone who's a content creator in the tech space or just lifestyle and honestly like home would know who you are. But let's save the elevator pitch. Let's go right into the fact that you're doing YouTube, running a full empire. What do you feel like is like the most important thing that you're working on right now?
So I think like the most important thing throughout the entire journey for us has been consistency. Never stopping in the last 13 years, always trying to find ways to create content, innovate content, and also like embracing, I guess, things that I'm interested in as I'm growing up. Because as someone who grew up on the internet as a 13-year-old, at the time I might have liked technology, but eventually you start to evolve into real estate, into cars, and into like travel and lifestyle. And with the channel, I've never really been afraid to showcase what I've been interested in at a given time. And I think that's what's kind of continued on and led to new opportunities and opened new doors. So yeah, I would say that's always been the most important thing. But the other thing is also never getting too comfortable. In the beginning, you're trying to find your way, you're trying to learn as much as you can. But even 13 years in, I feel like, as we've talked about today, I'm going through more struggles of how to run a business, what's next, how do you continue to stay motivated, even after reaching, in some ways, the pinnacle of multiple industries while still having so much more that we could achieve or work on. And just, I mean, navigating life and managing the business and the personal side of things is something that is constantly changing and it grows with you.
It's funny because off the mic, we were talking a lot today about how you, for once in a while, you're like kind of living more of your life. You're balancing that work and life now, and you're like, whoa, it feels weird because you've just been so go for so many years now. Now that you're actually living some parts of your life, it feels weird to you because you've just been on the grind for so long. There's a lot to unpack in what you just said. You started on YouTube like when you were how old?
I was 13.
13? Bro, how did you even have the awareness? Like why YouTube and like why? Because I have actually scrolled way back on your channel before, and you can see like when you were making these YouTube videos when you were really young, and it's like literally like baby version of you talking about tech. Like this is before like tech YouTube was even like a niche. Like that wasn't even a thing yet.
Yeah, it was honestly, it just started from going down the rabbit hole of watching a bunch of videos and being interested in tech. Because growing up, I didn't really care about tech. I was into hockey, I was into Legos. I didn't really have a smartphone until like much later, actually, after I started YouTube. But I was looking at the iPod Touch, wanted to learn more about it. And as you kind of watch a bunch of videos, you kind of see in yourself to be able to talk about the topic because you become so knowledgeable and passionate about it. And so I saved up 1.5 years for an iPod. And after I purchased the iPod, I figured it was time to go ahead and I guess start making videos on my own because I noticed people were getting a lot of free stuff. And so back then I was really invested into research. I was wanting to learn everything about every single thing I was buying just because it took so much time to save up for each thing. And if I made the wrong buying decision, it would be a pretty big financial impact. And so I would say like back then it was like I didn't have the best production quality. I didn't know how to run a business. I maybe wasn't too well spoken, but it was one take videos, and that really taught me to try to be as concise as possible, try to perfect things in one go because you don't have much ability to edit the videos that were filmed on an iPod, but also I guess leaning in on the strengths and doing your research and knowing what to talk about is free. And upgrading your camera equipment and trying to do crazy production and all that kind of stuff costs money. So at the time it was use the resources you have and produce as many videos as possible because my approach would have to be quantity over quality at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I still feel like you'd be pumping out videos right now. I feel like you do a lot of work and you travel to a lot of places. Where do you feel like there was aha moments for you in your YouTube journey? Because a lot of creators, I feel that they don't really, I guess someone who's been on the other side now, what are those inflection points? Or does that even happen? Should you wait for like, okay, this is an aha moment, I should stick with this? Or what kept you going on those years or those like high points?
Yeah, so I think with any YouTube journey, especially one that's over a decade long, there's so many ups and downs throughout that. People don't know, but there's multiple times where I was going to quit making videos. And there's other points where you reach like an insane peak that is further beyond what you could have ever expected or dreamt of in the industry. And so I wouldn't say like in this space you have like, you might have a few like aha moments, but it is just a journey. And a lot of times there isn't just something that happens. There might be opportunities that come out of nowhere, but it is just continuing on creating videos, and eventually you take a look at where you've come in 6 months or a year and are able to evaluate whether you've taken the right direction. So in the beginning, I made like 300 videos a year just for fun, anything that I could find, even the most random cable I would make a video about. And then eventually it was higher produced videos. And then there was also a phase where brand deals started to become very common. And so I wanted to invest in equipment, production. And so I took a ton of brand deals, and that hurt the channel significantly, and realized that it was the wrong approach or not the right way to do sponsorships. And then eventually there was also the opportunity to travel with all these companies. Next thing you know, you're gone 100 days a year. You don't have any time off. You're always tired, and you feel like your at-home production, editing skills, and just skills of running a business start to suffer a lot, but then you're having a great time traveling. And you're always just trying to balance all these different things at once. And even now, I think that's the biggest struggle. Like, which industry do I want to make content in? Which trips do I want to take? How much of a personal life do I want to have? And also, how far do you want to push the business? And with that also comes, how big do you want to grow the team?
Yeah.
And so I think there have been a few moments where you kind of step back and realize where you've come. But I think what people have to know about this space specifically is that just as you're about to quit, you might be about to turn a corner in your channel where you're in the right place, right time, covering the right niche, and that could be career changing. And so I'm glad I never stopped. And I think that's the reason why the company and the channel is where it is today, and the opportunities that we have are where they are today, is because we've never actually stopped. Even when there was like those points where you're kind of like, this isn't really going anywhere.
Yeah.
We just continue to put out videos, and during that time, maybe slow down the output, but continue to evaluate where things are going.
Yeah, that's really good. It's so crazy because when I look back at some of the times when I first found you, like before we even connected online and stuff, I thought to myself, man, this dude has it dialed. Like, I think it was one of your like day in the life of a 22-year-old like entrepreneur or something like that. I think like one of the first few videos I came across, and it was like you living in your spot and your daily routine. I was like, this dude's got it figured out, honestly. But that's now that I meet you in person, and then also just becoming buddies over the last couple years on social, there's so much more that goes on behind the scenes. And you just hit on it a little bit. When you are like in your own place with your own camera making your videos, you're not thinking about having a team. You don't have all this production gear. You're not worrying about expenses and taxes and business write-offs and all these things. Do you feel like that has become more of a crutch for you, or more of enables you to do better things?
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Like when you first reach that point where you're able to incorporate, have your first office, have staff, buy whatever equipment you want, you're kind of like, this is really cool. I never thought I'd be able to do that, or I didn't know I'd be able to reach this point. But after you get very used to it, and as your resources continue to grow, which is the goal of any business, to be able to buy the equipment you want, to be able to grow your team, you start to realize like a lot of your time is spent on managing, organizing, administrative side of things, and this and that. And it is true. Like the more money, the more resources, the more problems. Things are always broken. Somebody's always unhappy. Like there's finance this, finance that. You start to own assets, and there's all these things to deal with all that. So as your business gets bigger, it comes with the organizational aspect. And I think a lot of the reasons why I struggle with it and why it stresses me out is also because I've never had a real job. I've never worked for a boss. I don't know what it's like to work for somebody, and I haven't been able to shadow anybody who owns a business or runs a similar business. And so this entire 13-year journey has just been navigating it on my own as a teenager, trying to deal with contracts with major brands, invoicing companies, eventually hiring somebody and not knowing how to train them. Once you train them, you have to learn how to work with creatives and also administrative. And so, yeah, I do like look at my job nowadays and I'm like, well, there's more resources. There's a relatively large team for what it is. But a lot of my day is spent telling people what to do, answering questions, instead of actually sitting down and filming the videos on my own. Whereas when it was a one-man crew, I was just in the basement all day, filmed, edited, and I just lived and breathed the business. And it was very liberating for many years. And it taught me a lot. I think YouTube's an amazing, and a creative space is an amazing business to teach you every aspect of a small business. But like, as you start to grow your business, the logical step is like to hire people.
For sure. Do you feel like that's a good tip for creators who are struggling right now to think that, oh, I don't have it made. Like I don't have the camera. I don't have the resources. I don't have a team like Justin. I feel like I shouldn't just like waste my time making videos in my bedroom. What would you tell to someone like that who just hasn't even really like got off the ground yet? Like
it's tough because you actually learn the most from utilizing the resources that you have. I made some of the best, most creative content when I was relatively strapped on resources, because if you're really passionate about the industry, you'll make do with what you have. But obviously, like as we've talked about already, actually, as your business grows, as you have more money, the logical thing is to buy new equipment. And then you realize you have everything you need. And once you have everything you need, you look around and you're less excited or less hungry to create that content after the initial period of having all the resources wears off. It's really cool for a little bit. And then eventually you're like, well, like, what am I working for next? And so you always need these new goals and new goalposts, which is good, but it's also very continuous and toxic, especially when YouTube gets thrown in the mix, where there's numbers involved, there's money involved, there's revenues, subscribers, followers, views, all those kind of numbers that you're always chasing. And so I think the biggest thing is like the more resources I've had, the more kind of lost or confused I've been with where to go with it. And I remember buying my first camera, a $400 camera. I was super excited to test every aspect of it. But then now we're filming with $50,000 cameras. And I would say the excitement level compared to when I was like 16 years old with my first camera, running around with it, filming pretty bad videos. But at the time, I thought they were very impressive. It's changed a lot for sure. And it's interesting. And I think, I mean, it's not surprising. Like in life, once you have everything you need, or you think you have everything you need, there's a period where you're sort of like, well, like, what's next? And you have to kind of find ways to appreciate it and utilize it effectively to kind of take that next step forward.
Definitely. You have like 800,000 subs on YouTube, right? 800,000 subs. You're about to gross, you said like past 2 million this year, and you have multiple properties and doing a bunch of things. One huge gap that I see with creators is, this isn't actually just big creators. It's like creators not knowing how to get out of like that creator mode and like set up pillars for their life, like business, talking property, talking products. Like, how have you always just been like, how do I multiply my money? And you've always viewed YouTube as a business? Or where was there a transition point where you're like, you know what, like I need to step back from this day to day, like making videos, and really think about how am I going to set up my future? Like, tell us about that transition point, like first property, making your first 6 figures, like that, all those kind of transitions to be like, I could do this and really do something big.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny you say that, because like in some ways I'm really good at investing, and in other ways I recklessly spend. And you kind of need to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially if you're making money when you're young, and especially in the creative space where sometimes you can be getting paid tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Like I remember being in high school and getting a $10,000 check. That's a crazy amount of money at that age. And even though it's bad to mismanage it, I think you have to get certain things out of your system. So
Sure.
like going back to high school, in the beginning, it was like pennies. I mean, for first few years, you're making videos for free. You're selling some stuff. You make 20 bucks here and there selling the stuff, then that's great. But then eventually some of the videos like got a lot of views and you start making thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. And there's a lot of things that you want to buy. And the whole motivation to make videos when you're in like middle school or high school isn't to set up your life. I didn't know what a mortgage was. And so I was just buying a bunch of shoes, clothes, going to events that I wanted to, eating out all the time, buying video game systems and buying more tech, which was beneficial to the business overall.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was spending all the money I was making. Even when I was making $50,000, I was spending all the money that I was making. I spent $20,000 on shoes one year. Those are
20,000? You were a sneakerhead?
Yeah, until I was like 20. And then I completely got it out of my system.
Got it.
That was
a
where
phase.
my parents were kind of like, well, you're making this much money. You should buy a piece of real estate. And we're going to show you the process of how to go and find and buy your first piece of real estate. You should buy one that you can rent out, Airbnb, or you can live in it if you can afford the monthly mortgage after making the down payment. And I didn't think much of it. I was like, okay, sure, whatever. Like it'd be nice to have my own place. And so I listened to that and it ended up being like a very eye-opening thing a few years later. For the first few years, I was kind of just like, I'm living in my house. Great. I'm very happy with it. But then it opened up to the world of real estate. And going back, as you start to make your first six figures, I was going into university and I got like a major tax bill one year. I think I was making about $250,000 while I was in university working 3 days a week. And that was kind of a turning point of it.
Hold on. Pause. You were going to university, working 3 days a week, and then also made $250,000 a year.
It was like sitting in class doing notes from Monday to Thursday. And
Bro,
then
that's crazy.
Friday would just be like film. Saturday, I would have a routine of like filming and editing. And then Sunday, I would upload, but I wouldn't go get a burrito or a coffee until the video was up. And so each week, I would upload 1 or 2 times consistently. And I was actually very efficient at that time because you're forced to sit down and research and plan. And then you're forced to film in 1 to 2 days or you're not going to have that window anymore. And I mean, looking back now, I don't really know how I did it because now I have all the time in the world. And if anything, there's less pre-production, but the production overall takes a lot longer than back when I was like sitting at home or sitting in class trying to just make a bunch of notes because I wasn't really interested in the class content. So I got like a major tax bill while I was in university, self-employed. And I was like, it just doesn't make sense to stay. I should give this industry a try because even at $250,000, I felt like there's so much more that I was capable of. And there's so many more opportunities that I wasn't able to take as a result of being in school. And so I left in the first week of 4th year of my business degree. And instantly brands started inviting us all over the world. I flew like over 100 times. And this is like the first time I've traveled.
How many
for
subs
work.
were you at this point?
I was probably at like, I would say 300,000 to 400,000 subs.
Okay.
But yeah, first time being flown around the world, I was like, that was another eye-opening thing. I didn't know like there's just free travel like this to go to all these press events. It was economy everything. Just like didn't push back, didn't ask for extra days.
Was it just early YouTube at that time? Because I feel like nowadays, if you had 300, like everyone uses 100K as kind of like the gate, like that's the entry point, right? Once you have 100K, you're kind of like, okay, cool, like I'm kind of a YouTuber, right? But you were still in university when you had like 300, 400. Like why wasn't it at like 100, 200 where you're like, I'm gonna quit and like do this?
It was I mean, I didn't know how sustainable it was.
Like you thought it was
My
just going to be like
parents were
a
also
wild
like, go to
wave.
university, don't care how much money you make, you need to do this. But then they also understood the magnitude of the industry, whereas I was seeing so many of these opportunities pass by because I was in school. And even making $250,000, it was like I was working 2 to 3 days a week. And so like, you know, I was hanging by a thread at school, but the business was thriving and had so much more to be able to see that like there would be a bit of regret if I didn't give it a chance. And the timing was perfect because, you know, pandemic after, I wouldn't have traveled if I had finished my university program, and the business every single year after that doubled. And so travel was a very eye-opening thing. I learned a lot from it, and then eventually was able to optimize that side of the business, and that kickstarted the travel series. My initial real estate investment in 2017 kickstarted a home series from the renovations being filmed. And that led to more investments and bigger opportunities in the travel and real estate space. And I mean, each car I had, I kind of just filmed that, made a video about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that led us into, I guess, the pinnacle of the car industry as well. And that takes us to what we were working on today.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of go with the flow, but it was also consistency, trying to do a lot more planning. But I would say, like, I mean, just from us talking today, like, there's still so much to learn. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how to navigate things. And there's always something.
What would you tell someone who has a hard time with imposter syndrome? I mean, obviously you have a channel now and you have a lot of people who are watching you.
Yep.
But a lot of people who are watching, maybe listening to MIDCONVO or watching MIDCONVO, they have like this friction with showing up online or sharing content online. Obviously you started very early, but even now, like, how do you just get over that? Because a lot of people they can't get over the fact that they don't want to be on camera, or like they fumble over their words for every 2 seconds. Like, how do you just get over it? And just, is this something that gets better with time, or should people be like, I'm not cut out for this?
It's weird because I think, like, I was never very nervous to be on camera. I would say I still don't like being on camera, but the internet was kind of an outlet for me. Like, I was like the most talkative kid around people that I knew, but otherwise I was relatively shy. I was scared in public. And so I felt like I had a lot of like built up knowledge or things that I wanted to say that the internet allowed it to be the outlet. I would say, like, the biggest case of imposter syndrome I have is probably nowadays. Like, over the years, I was like, I've put in the work, I've put in the time, and I show up every single day. I would do everything for my business. I'll stay up till 3 a.m. if I need to edit. We won't miss any deadlines. And I worked every single day of the year for probably over a decade. It was live and breathe YouTube. Every aspect of my life was built around it, and every second was able to be committed to it if I wanted it to be. And so, like, I was like, I deserve all the success in the world as a result of that. But then now it's like, I'm taking a step back here and there. I'm traveling, I'm handing stuff off. My output is still the same. We're still meeting all the deadlines to some degree, but I feel like, wow, like, the organization is not as good. I do feel like, I don't know, I'm a little bit looser with things, creatively maybe not involved because there's a bigger team now. And then, like, taking weekends off even, or not working in the evenings. I feel very guilty that I've stepped away from that. And that's when the imposter syndrome sets in, like, wow, did I just get too comfortable in my own business that I built? And now the reality is going to hit that I actually didn't build as strong of a business as I might have thought I did a few years ago. Because, yeah, when you're working on it all day, you're like, I deserve every bit of this. And so, yeah, that's kind of been the imposter syndrome lately. And I think it shows that, like, even for people who kind of fantasize like a multi-million-dollar business in this industry, that no matter where you are, you're always going to run into some case of imposter syndrome. Yeah, I would say, like, there's definitely phases of it throughout, but generally speaking, I was always relatively comfortable with uploading whatever online. And just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just going with it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different thing. I was never afraid of it, but I can understand why people are afraid to kind of show themselves on the internet.
Kind of tying into that, I guess the second question that I had would be, what role do you think work ethic plays in becoming a successful content creator? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who, you know, they want to be able to be comfortable, like chasing doing what you love. I feel like a lot of people take that as a reason to be like, I'm going to let off the gas and be comfortable. I'm going to do this at my own pace, which is like, okay. But in your case, what would you answer? Like, how important is work ethic though? Like the late nights, like the being critical of yourself, like work ethic, communication, what role does that play in your success?
I think that's the biggest thing, because I've always said, like, I've never been the most talented creator. I've never been the most knowledgeable in the tech space. I've never been the best cinematographer, but it was always like, what can I do to grow this business and grow the brand? How do I put myself in front of opportunities? And if I outwork every single person in the industry by spending every holiday, every day, like, I literally cannot have any regrets because I knew I put in every aspect of work and nobody can take that away from me. And so I think work ethic is very important. Some people try to manage burnout better than others, but in my case, it was always just push forward, and it's worked. But there's always been points where it's like, if you push even just a little bit further, you might completely stop doing what you're doing. And so, yeah, I would say like work ethic is definitely something that was the biggest factor in what's gotten us to where we are now. But I mean, going back to the last question, it was sort of like, now I'm 26. I'm tired. I'm like taking more time off. And so I'm like, did I drain my entire battery too early? Because for 10 straight years, it was like full on everything. Last year was 125 flights on top of working on weekends. Year before was always weekends, evenings, and all that kind of stuff. And you sort of question, like, has it finally caught up? Did I do this completely wrong where I thought I was getting ahead by working all these hours in the last 10 years and putting myself in a very good position at 26? Or did I just make myself lazy for the rest of my life because I'm tired now?
Yeah, no, that's valid, super valid. If someone is thinking about getting into the grind season right now with their work, looking back at your own journey, would you say, yes, I would 100% do that all over again?
Absolutely.
Dang, that's how
you gotta say, like, you gotta ride the waves. When you have creative waves, you gotta go crazy. But then the most you're gonna learn is gonna be when you don't want to create content, and you still do. Because once you have that creative spurt again, you're still gonna have content to show for it during those periods, and you just have this momentum that continues to go. Whereas whenever you take a break, you either can come back refreshed and ready to go if you're like disciplined with it, or you can just completely fall off and become lost in it. And I was always afraid to kind of become lost in the industry from not uploading for long periods of time. And so even if I didn't want to make videos, I still tried to make something. That way, when I was ready to come back, I at least didn't feel like I was playing catch up all the way from the beginning. So I think a lot of creators during the pandemic, especially in like the travel industry, they kind of took a step back. And I would say that very few of them actually came back the way that they would like to. And when I talk to some of them, they're sort of like, I wish I didn't stop. I'm just trying to play catch up now. But, like breaks aren't a bad thing. The last 2 months have been a lot like quieter and
which I feel like for you is still not quiet because you still post all the time.
The last few days were a little bit hectic, but I'm almost like, did I like drop the ball? Like, am I doing things wrong? Did I just like ruin every single thing I ever created because of this recent break? So you always ask yourself these questions, and if you're the only one that runs a business, then you don't really have anybody to kind of get valid advice from.
One thing we talk about a lot on this podcast is just like a lot of freelancers listen to this podcast, a lot of creators. The one thing that kind of comes up often is like negotiations. And I think for you, I don't know how transparent you want to be on the pod with numbers and whatnot, but you've closed like multiple 5-figure deals, multiple 6-figure deals, and we're talking like with one brand. We're not talking like your net. We're talking like your one brand. What are some negotiation tips that people have? Because creators, especially in this industry, constantly undervalue themselves. And with you just like come guns blazing and you know exactly what to charge and you walk away closing these massive deals. Is that just something that just comes natural to you? Or do you have like a playbook for that? Is that something you've kind of thought about?
Yeah, I would say like growing up, I was always really into closing deals. And the way that I saved up to buy my first iPod was actually selling stuff on like Craigslist and getting a 10% commission of it. And it taught me a lot about sales skills. And I think learning sales is very important in every aspect of life. But I also was very heavy on value proposition, from getting free products to getting paid brand deals. And for anyone who's even applying for a job, the most important approach that most people make the mistake of is think about what you can provide for the company that you're asking something for first, because everyone always like says, okay, what's in it for me? They only think about what's in it for them, which is fair. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I can't say I'm trying to ask for tens of thousands of dollars and it's not for my benefit, but you try to kind of visualize it for them. And so, like deal making did come naturally because of sales experience and having a business first mentality. But the great thing is that business can be taught. And there is a bit of intuition applied to it. And a lot of intuition is needed to be good at closing deals. Whereas creativity is something that is relatively hard to teach. It does take some levels of talent as well. So I look at a lot of creatives who can make like amazing content. And I'm like, they could definitely monetize their business with a little bit of guidance and learning. But I think the top negotiation tips I have for the 5 and 6 figure deals is like, take a look at your brand. What makes you different? What value can you provide to the company? Is it like image quality? Is it performance? Is it past conversion numbers? And a lot of the biggest campaigns that we've had, it had nothing to do with like conversion numbers. It didn't have anything to do with views specifically. Instead, it was actually focused on just the content niche. We have a unique blend of tech, home, travel, lifestyle, and cars, but also the content being commercial grade, how it's filmed on a Red, and it's content that they can end up relicensing for their own usage. combination deals are also a very important one. So like trying to put together an ambassadorship, explaining to them how there are multiple competitors within the space. And if they want continuity, signing a multiple episode deal locks it in. And so, yeah, like there's so many ways. And I think a lot of it has to be like done through like a Q&A process and like case studies. But, it definitely is an art that's built over time. But it's something that can be taught. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah. I think what you just hit on, what I extracted from that just now is you said something super valuable, which is you don't look at necessarily just your subscriber count. You don't look at just followers. It's like, what are your strong suits as a business? For you, it was like image quality. It was your niche. And then you doubled down on that. So when you talk
experience with the space, past clients.
And you hit on that in the negotiation process. Like that's what your leverage is.
I mean, views and having good conversion numbers, that's like the easy way to be able to score large brand deals. But there are guys who are converting very well and not getting what they like. And in our experience from deals that we have converted well, and we were not able to even get close to the amount of money that a deal could get because of them enjoying the content, but also the niche and the blend.
Dude, you just hit on a golden nugget, bro. Spec work. You like kind of just talked about spec work and also the YouTube space as well, right? Like there are certain brands that you take on, you're not getting paid any money. But the credibility aspect of it has led to way more money down the line from other brands.
Yeah, it's like it's explaining that no matter what size you're at, there's still certain types of work that you should do as spec work. Like our first real estate tour, for example, was a $250 million condo in New York City, which is the highest price listing in the US right now, I believe. And as a result of doing that, it opens up opportunities.
And you didn't get paid for that.
We didn't get paid for that, but like we flew ourselves there and filmed it. And as a result of that, you're now able to go and pitch any other real estate thing that you want to do.
Piece.
Yeah. And the same goes with, for example, when we were doing the like Lamborghini, that's like one of the top companies in the industry. There's a rare opportunity to check out a car that there isn't many of. And by putting that out there, it shows that you're capable and also interested in that space. Mercedes concept cars is also like look at this. It's a very rare, it's a one-of-one car. Mercedes doesn't let many people touch this. And as a result of the past work we've done for Mercedes, they gave us the opportunity for that. And that just continues to heighten the amount of access you get in each space. The travel industry too. Like
same thing.
Four Seasons jet, we didn't charge them a penny for that. But if you want to go on the Ritz-Carlton yacht, go to Antarctica on a private jet, you now have a very strong case to be able to make as a result of that. And of course, it was like a very surreal experience.
Yeah. I think also too, like, of course, you probably have some of these opportunities as well. I would probably say you're able to get the attention to begin with because you have such a wide portfolio of content online. But I think the more important lesson that people need to take away is sometimes you just got to do it on your own dime.
Yeah.
And trust that piece of content will lead to more. The mistake that some people make is like, they don't actually get the gears turning until they're like, I get paid. Yeah. Like I will not pick up my camera and shoot anything until a brand is paying me money.
You have to pick and choose. Like I know some people are very like, know your value. Like we talked about how a lot of people undervalue themselves. But then there are also people who are like, now that they're told they undervalue themselves, are like, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not getting paid. But there are still people who are out there doing things that you would have charged for free. And so to be competitive is try to find your competitive edge, create that piece of content. And if it's free the first time and it's compelling enough for the brand to want it the second time, they're going to have to pay the second time. And so talk to people in your industry, because at the end of the day, creators are all in the same boat. They want to get as much money out of companies. And so by talking to each other, you're helping the industry grow as a whole. You don't necessarily have to share rates, but at least give like a baseline and continue to push the industry forward. And I know in some industries, there are a lot more gatekeepers, but in tech, generally speaking, I mean, the rates have gotten so high because everybody continues to propel themselves forward. And it's been like that for like 10 years. Like even as a teenager, we just get on a call and say like, how much did you charge this rep? How much did you charge that rep? Who's willing to send what? And we just try to ask for more each time. And when everybody's asking for more, the brands have no choice but to do it.
I'm fired up. All right, let's go close some deals right now. No, that's so sick, dude. I just really appreciate your work ethic for sure, first off. And I think there's just a lot of crossover with what we're talking about with people who are not even in the YouTube space. Like a lot of the things we've just went over in this podcast with business, negotiations, like work ethic, you can apply this all into just like your freelance business, whatever you're doing. It doesn't have to necessarily being an on-camera personality like online on YouTube. So that's just super valuable. What do you feel like is the most struggle when it comes to comparing? Like, do you compare yourself to other people's work? Like, how do you continue? Is it just all internal? How do you push the needle forward? Are you kind of pulling up references? Like, do you compare yourself to other people in your space? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, the Asian parent thing was they compare you to everybody, but then as soon as you use a comparison as an excuse, they're like, well, you're not them. Like it was always like, oh, like your friend's getting better grades, or they're doing this, or they're good at that, or they're all well-rounded. And then I'm like, well, they got to do this. And they're like, well, you're your own person. You don't compare yourself. So it was always like selective comparison.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, obviously we take a look at what other people are working on, especially in tech. It's the same type of coverage over and over again. And so you do want to like see what other people are working on, what's working, what's not. And when you first start doing YouTube videos, like I was literally just copying people that I watched, like word for word, and it's the exact same thing. And then eventually you find your own style and you bring different aspects of what's working in the space and pick and choose. I would say like from a business standpoint, you want to be competitive. You want to make sure you're getting the most that you can, from a content creation standpoint as well. But then again, you end up with, next thing you know, you're on 120 flights a year because you want to be on every single opportunity that every single person has, while also making more videos and more money. And it gets a little bit tiring. And I guess like when you're in that like work mode and work only mode and your entire life is about it, it is very progressive for a few years, but then you will get tired. So,
goes in spurts.
Yeah, I would say
comes and goes.
Yeah, comparison. Yeah, there was always comparison.
Even
it doesn't go away,
even when you're succeeding.
Yeah, it's not good. But I think I'm kind of stepping away from it now. Like once you find other things that you enjoy in life and things that are important to you, you're kind of like, well, like I'm very happy with this. But yeah, when I was in my work mode, like fully work mode, it was everything was a comparison.
Yeah. But I think everything has led you up to this point. Do you have a dream brand that you'd love to work with?
Honestly, I feel like we have already worked with
That's a fair
pretty
answer.
much every brand that we've had on our list. Like going to the Apple campus last year was really cool.
Surreal for you.
And then like Four Seasons, that's like the pinnacle of the travel industry. There's nothing above that when it comes to like the private jet experience. I mean, I like watches, but like Rolex is not going to work with a tech YouTuber, for example. And I mean, Singapore Airlines was really, really cool. That was something that I really wanted to work on. But car brands as well, like Mercedes-Benz has provided so many amazing experiences that I never would have imagined and given us access at the highest level, including the factory. So
that was cool. Super cool.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like nowadays I don't know if I have a dream brand right now. You just kind of go with the flow, and I
think
it's good to have something to chase.
100%.
But then I think the other thing that's very important is that what you're chasing may not end up being what you expected to be this whole time. So like obviously working with Apple is a dream, but it is something that you have to put a lot of effort into in my case, it was a 10-year period before I got invited to my first Apple event. And then when you go to the Apple event, by then you've already like got to experience way crazier stuff than that. And you're like, yeah, this is really cool. It's good to check this off. But I would have been a lot more excited if this was like 7 or 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so I always find that like I might have a goal that's set 5 or 10 years in advance. But by the time you reach that goal, you're already like looking so far ahead that you're kind of just like, okay, like whatever. It's like kind of like buying my dream car. Could have bought it 5 years ago, but it would have been a huge stretch. Like I would have been spending a significant portion instead of like buying like real estate, for example. But now like I was like, okay, I'm comfortably ready to go for it. And I'm not like overly excited about it because you've waited so long. And that's sometimes a good thing. You don't want to do things that are irrational and make bad decisions. Mm. But then it's hard to be excited about stuff. And it's the same goes for brands. You're always looking further ahead.
Yeah. It's like delayed gratification a little bit. It's just super satisfying in its own way.
It's like I'm taking the opportunity now for my 15-year-old self that would have done anything to get invited to like an in-person event back when YouTubers were not getting invited to the Apple campus. Mm. And now it's like, like in Cupertino again, like San Jose.
Success is like a move. It's like they say, it's like a moving goalpost, right? It's like
it's tiring.
You're never gonna get to that point. Yeah. But just taking like our business like convo just like off on a more personal level for a quick second, I honestly think that you're just at a point too in your life where you're just kind of reaping the benefits of your hard work, dude. Like your new Porsche that you just got is coming in 2 months, 9/11, right? And you just got your dream home. And you even said when we were at dinner earlier, like you have your dream home now and your dream car, but you're still wanting to work. And honestly, it's okay to have a little like foot off the gas. Like you're just reaping the rewards of your hard work. That's how I feel. That's how I feel it. You know,
it is weird because like a lot of times, even if you like were able to find like levels of success when you're relatively young, it's still not like this young. Like you're kind of like, okay, well, like 30s, 40s, I can take the foot off the gas. But then when
26,
yeah, but some people are like, oh, like a few years ago, people were like, oh, you could take your foot off the gas, you can hang out, you can chill. But then I'm like, well, you have these standards for yourself that you always have to continue doing better, and you have to beat the year before. You have to reach these certain goalposts. And so it feels weird no matter how high of a level you reach at any age to sit down and be like, okay, I'm satisfied. And that's why people continue to work as they get very old and this and that. So I think that's what I have a bit of guilt of, like where at this age, I'm like, like I don't really want to do this anymore. I'm never gonna have to do this again. And that kind of thing. And I'm like, you don't want to get too comfortable with that because like, what if I've already peaked? Because I'm like, I look back and I was like, I wish I still had my 18 or 19-year-old work ethic and hunger, because with the knowledge that I have today, and that level of work ethic, I feel like it'd be done a lot better. Like I was dialed in, I was always motivated. And I was telling you, like nowadays, like work starts at 9, I'm still in bed at 9. Like, and I can't remember the last time I was like, oh, I can't wait to film this video and go to this. And even work trips, it's like, oh, like, you know, I go back to the airport. And then when you get to the destination, you're like, this is great, whatever. But then while you're on the trip, you're like, we have to go somewhere else the week after. Like I was, for example, we were on a 4-stop trip that went to like Germany, Barcelona, Montreal for like a crazy like car thing in like a chalet, and it was like a vacation. And then I go to New York, but then while we're like in the middle of enjoying that really cool work trip in Montreal, Mercedes emails and it's like, do you want to come to the Arctic Circle next Thursday?
Oh, I think I saw that. Is that the FPV one you did where like you were ripping around the FPV and stuff?
And it was literally 30 hours of flying, 24 hours on the ground, another 30 hours back. And I think a few days later we were back on a plane. And so it's like, these are crazy experiences. You want to be able to say you went to the Arctic Circle and like spun Mercedes around all over the place, but you're almost not doing it for yourself. You're doing it because it's good for the business. You're checking it off the box. You get your content out of it and you kind of just feel like a puppet. And I was telling somebody that like at this stage of the industry, you work hard to get opportunities. And then once you get so many opportunities and get to where you want to, you feel like you're a puppet that just gets dragged around the world like every other week, nonstop. And so lately it's been nice to say no to things and actually be happy about it. And like, you know, I'm happy I spent time with my friends instead, chilled out a little bit. And like,
that's the way to do it.
It's weird though, because you work, you literally work to get more opportunities.
Yeah.
And then
I could totally relate to so many parts of your story. Like, it's just funny, like that it's a moving goalpost. Like if you told me like a while ago where I'd be, you know, having my own place, married, doing my own thing, it's like, I'd be like, what, at 26? That's crazy, you know? But it's a moving goalpost and you're constantly trying to succeed in different ways as you reach that level.
Yeah.
Harlow, my dog just came into the frame if you're watching on video. Okay, we can kind of start wrapping up the pod. If you could go back to your 13-year-old self and have a face-to-face conversation with young Justin, knowing what you know now, what would you have told, like what advice would you have given him? Or would you have not said anything and just been like, keep doing you, bro? Like, what would you have done differently?
I don't think I would have done anything differently.
Yeah.
But it's weird because where the business and everything has reached now is more than I could have dreamt of, but also not surprising considering this was like the best case scenario. And I was like, I'm going to work towards this and it's going to end up like this and like that. You know, like when you're like walking around with your friends, you're like, I'm going to do this one day. I'm going to have this, give it a few years. And then it ends up becoming a reality and you don't feel like you didn't deserve it because you put all the time in. But you also have to understand you get like, to get to this point of the business, you have to get lucky as well. Right timing, right place, right connections, the right people. A lot of things have to go right. And I feel like I don't appreciate that enough because things have, in terms of business, have fallen into place so perfectly over the years that I'm not used to things not working. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
And so even at a young age, it was always like, I'm going to do anything possible to get what I want. And you'd always find ways. And that's what makes you a creative business person. And I don't regret spending the last every single day of 10 years like working on the business. But I would say like what I would tell my 13-year-old self is that, at 26, you'll have everything you could have ever wanted out of this industry and then some, and like you could set yourself quite comfortably, but you're still not going to be happy as a result of having everything that you ever wanted. And I think anybody can kind of expect that. But a lot of times when you say that to your friends and whatever, like they're like, that's complete crap. Like, you know, if I had what you had and your opportunities and your travel and all that, I'd be perfectly happy too. But I'm also like, it's a little bit tougher, because then when you're unhappy and you're working towards a goal, you think that once you have the things that you want and reach your goals, you'll end up being happy. But once you have everything and you're still kind of like trying to kind of find that purpose, you're kind of like, where do you go? And so yeah, that's kind of been the figuring out thing when it comes to having all the things that you ever wanted and looking around being like, this is really cool, but you know, having some peace of mind would be nice. Like owning the whole business the entire time is very tiring, because you're just like, oh, I didn't get to go to bed on any of these days in the last 13 years without thinking about what I have to do tomorrow, what I'm responsible for. And yeah, you could take a step back, but then you have a responsibility to the business.
It's really true when they say that happiness is a choice. Like there's never going to be a perfect situation.
Yeah.
So you either choose to be happy now and work hard, or you can choose to be miserable and not work hard and not get what you want.
Honestly, the journey is the most fun part. Like when
sure.
I was like, I remember like young 20s, like in the basement before I moved out and all that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You're just like, you know, you're building an internet business and you know, you're building your future and everything's just so new. And there is that, like, I guess it's like the honeymoon phase of a business.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're like, wow, like you end up in this realization of like, holy crap, like you didn't think this industry could ever make 7 figures. And then you do it and you're like, okay, well, I got to prove to myself I can do it 2 years in a row. And then you do, and you're like, okay, now I can really invest in some resources. And then you're like, yeah, I don't really know what to do with it. And now it's a lot of responsibility as you kind of expand your resources. So yeah, it's an interesting business where like I could run with 1 person on my team, or I can run with 10 people on my team. And I've chosen to be right in the middle of that.
That's good.
And I'm like, wow, I'm like responsible for quite a few people. You have to manage their well-being and this and that. And I'm like, that actually puts a lot more stress on me than when I had to just run this entire business on my own.
Yeah.
And so you kind of dial back on it and you're like, well, I used to just film in the bedroom. Didn't like having all this equipment and stuff in my house.
Yeah.
Didn't have any work-life balance. But then I rent 5,000 square feet of office space, never go to it, and end up having this huge desk setup in my house. There's no equipment anymore. So it's like I rented an office to have storage. And then you're like, well, now I'm responsible for this office space for the next 3 years.
Yeah. But you'll look back on this in like 5-10 years from now
and laugh at how stupid I was.
You'll figure out why.
Kind of like buying the shoes when I was 19.
Hey, everything, life goes in phases.
Yeah, I'm sure there's worse mistakes to be made. I think generally speaking, 100%. I've avoided the major mistakes. I had one big tax bill. I used to waste all my money. And then like maybe the office was a little bit dumb. And then, so like, you know, it's all part of the process. You have to like make mistakes at least once to learn.
I think the biggest thing, if you're listening, guys, while we wrap up, if you've taken anything away from this, whether you're a freelancer, creative, or you're trying to do YouTube, whatever it is, you can clearly tell that Justin has the business side figured out. And that's huge. Like you can't just be a creative. You can't just be someone.
60% business, 40% creative is kind of, I mean, it might be controversial, but the creative side's the hardest part to learn and hardest part to teach. You kind of just have to feel it.
Yeah. But the business side is what's going to help you do it for the years to come.
And it's going to put you in better positions to create more effectively as well, from an opportunity standpoint, from a resource standpoint.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, being organized, being honest with yourself. I mean, Edward and I have stories for days about like working with people that are so talented, and if they had the right business skill set, could make millions of dollars. And even people that we're like looking at are like, wow, like they make way better videos than I could ever make, but they're not in the same position just because of very basic skills from a business standpoint, or even just like from a professional standpoint, that are completely missing. There's just no discipline there. And so you do have to kind of discipline yourself. And it's tough because creatives, for example, may be wired a certain way where you're always thinking about ideas and you film and you create when you have a flow. You don't force yourself to do anything. You don't try to crunch yourself with deadlines, but you just got to choose what you want to be. And in my case, I wanted to be a business first. And the level of creativity and the level of production is built to the point where it will benefit the business side of things, and not too much beyond that. I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to be more passionate about that. But yeah, everyone has their own percentage of where they want to lean.
Dude, thank you so much for coming onto the pod. This has been a super awesome conversation to have. Me and Justin have spent pretty much all day together, but there's a lot of things that was discussed.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a really long day. It's like, we're literally in my home office right now. It's like it's like 10 o'clock at night, and we're just getting this done all for you guys to listen. What are you working on right now? Where would you like to send people? YouTube obviously is your main focus, but is that where people can pretty much find you?
Yeah, Justin Say on YouTube, Justin.tse on Instagram. There's a little bit of travel coming up in the fall. I guess like not too much, not compared to last year, but Four Seasons private jet campaign's coming out. The home series that I've been working on for a year and a half, that's starting to get released. So
huge.
Yeah, kind of just, ride it out to the end of the year and see what next year's bringing us.
If you're interested in travel, real estate, business, tech, or pretty much anything of young entrepreneur journey of making money online, you should definitely check out Justin's work. It's really, dude, we should go. I don't want to like put him on blast or anything, but it's so cool, dude. There's like a fan that came to the dealership today, like rolled up, like Justin
he spotted us on Instagram.
Yeah, Justin posted a story, and someone rolled up and was like super excited to meet you. So I'm just tooting your horn a little bit just to let you know that you're doing well, dude. And like, that's really awesome that
Thank you.
People are recognizing you like
that.
And
I look at your work for inspiration as well from a style standpoint, creative side. And I've always said, I need a videographer like you on my team, a business oriented videographer.
Hopefully we get to work on more projects. And I still got a long ways to go before I can get a Porsche. So let's make that happen.
It's not going to make you happy. I'll tell you that.
All right, bro. All right. Thank you so much. And see you guys later. Peace.